Welcome to the Twin Cities Business Show. Today we're talking to Scott Stallman, the president of Dunwoody College of Technology, about the future of Minnesota's workforce, where our economy's headed, and what's going on in the higher education system. We're going to show you the craziest apple you've ever seen and tell you about why you should become a surveyor. Welcome to the Twin Cities Business Show. We are here today with Scott Stallman, the president of Dunwoody College of Technology. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
We are delighted to have you.
I am happy to be here.
Dunwoody is an amazing institution. And just for folks that aren't really familiar with you guys, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what is Dunwoody?
So Dunwoody College of Technology is the oldest tech school in the country, really. And it's a very unique college. When I was in grad school, we learned about Dunwoody College as being kind of the first school of its kind. 111 years ago, William and Kate Dunwoody passed away, and they decided to give their wealth to three different primary entities. And it's interesting to me to think about what those were. The first one was MIA. So they provided seed funds, for the Institute of Art. Abbott, Northwestern Hospital. And then Dunwoody, those three things. And when you think about just a society and, a culture and a city, what makes something great and a place you want to live is you want people to be healthy. You want culture, like the arts, and then you also want an educated workforce. And at the time, we're a growing city with a huge milling industry. And, William Dunwoody was one of the founders of Washburn Crosby, which later on became General Mills. And he was largely responsible for opening up European markets to Minnesota flour.
Wow.
Yeah. So really, the city has a lot to sort of it owes a lot to William Dunwoody's work. But anyway, so they gave to those three entities, and at the time it was a big swing. The idea that students, there would be a place to learn these skilled trades that we really needed at the time. We had labor market shortages in a lot of different areas. And the thing is 111 years later, we still have those labor market shortages in almost all of those areas. We still need welders and we still need machinists. We still need automation robotics folks. Now, obviously, that didn't exist back then, but it does now, and we need them. Pretty much Dunwoody, we're not just a skilled trade college anymore. We've evolved a little bit over the last really 15, 20 years. We've made a lot of changes. So rather than just being a 2-year school that provides the best skilled trades training out there, we also have some 4-year degree programs now too. Architecture is one. We have a full school of engineering with mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering. We have cybersecurity as a 4-year program. We also have +2 programs for students who are seeking, a bachelor's degree in, say, automation engineering controls or industrial engineering technology. So we do have those 4-year paths now. And so now the way that we view ourselves and the way that we talk about ourselves is really, if it's high pay, high demand fields, that's what we're about. We want to make sure we're the best value in higher education for students at a time when value is being questioned. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Good.
High pay, high demand fields. Can you give us just a few examples of kind of what those are today?
Well, I mean, you look at really any of our programs, they're all going to have those outcomes where students are going to be able to get a great job and have a great career. So, it's something like that's been around for a long time. For instance, a surveyor. I think somebody will probably write in and say I was wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Abe Lincoln was a surveyor.
Okay.
I think Jefferson and Washington were both surveyors. That said, it's an old career.
Yeah.
And we still need surveyors. It's funny. We had a big developer a couple semesters back call our faculty member and serve one of our faculty members in surveying and said, if you have 2 surveying grads that you can send us today, we'll give them $80,000 a year and a $5,000 signing bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a 2-year degree, and that's a bit of an anomaly. That said, we do need more of them, and they do make a very good living. And And the thing is you can, there's a career trajectory there too. So yeah, I think it could be something as simple and as old timey as a surveying job or an electrician, but also automation engineering controls folks. This is a fairly new career path over the course of the past 20 years or so, and controls are programmable logic controls are in everything. I think a lot of people think, oh, they're in elevators. No, they're in almost everything now. So, uh, so those folks do very, very well. That's a 4-year degree program, and then we also have the automation robotics 2-year degree programs as well. All of those areas are high pay, high demand fields. But really, one thing that we try to do is we don't add a program at Dunwoody unless it is a high pay, high demand field. And if something stops being a high pay, high demand field, and we can't change it to make it more in demand, we'll sunset that program, which is something I think a lot of colleges struggle to do. But because it's so central to our mission and so important to us that students can find those great careers, we're willing to make those tough decisions.
Yeah. I like that you came prepared to rile up the historical surveyor community and really
I
prepare for
did.
the backlash on that
The
one. That's
historical
good.
surveyor community is, there. I'm guessing there's some Jeffersonian scholars out there who are going to be like,
Their
actually, I read
blood
a
is
book on
boiling.
Jefferson, and
I can feel it through the
he
screen right
actually
now.
wasn't a surveyor. That's a common misconception by so many. Anyway,
We
yeah.
we love all of our viewers. Please, keep your comments civil. So, some of the stuff you get into, just looking at your board and looking at your advisors, it's
Mhm.
this fascinating who's who of corporations and industry in Minnesota. So, can you talk a little bit about how you guys are? It seems like you're really integrated with people who are on the front lines of building these companies right now. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like, sort of on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that's just part of who we are. We've always been, we're so aligned with Washburn Crosby at our beginning, and what the needs of those, that milling industry and the manufacturing industry in Minneapolis was, and that's just continued. More. The founder of Mortenson was Dunwoody graduate. The founders of Polaris were Dunwoody graduates. The founders of, and you can look at any construction or manufacturing company pretty much in this state. At some point in their history, they most likely had a Dunwoody graduate in leadership.
Hmm.
So so yeah, that alignment has always been there, and because of that, it's such a part of our culture that I think it is kind of our secret sauce that our faculty come from industry, and they love engaging industry around what's happening right now to make sure that our programs are aligned. We have program advisory committees. I can tell you at other colleges that I'm familiar with, some that I've worked at, some that friends have worked at, it can be difficult to make those program advisory committees informative. So a lot of times faculty at some schools will have this feeling that, well, I'm the expert. I don't need to engage industry to find out what's happening. I'm an expert. I know
Hmm.
what's happening. And they're less interested in kind of looking at that information to make changes to curriculum. And at Dunwoody, we're far more collaborative with industry in that regard. We want to know what's happening out there, especially with all of these. It's such a dynamic time to live in with the
Hmm.
new technology. And you look at things like AI. How is AI informing heating and air conditioning? Well, if we're not asking industry, then how do we know? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? That's not an academic question. It's a question of what's happening, right now. How is AI, what's it doing? And how is AI informing architecture?
Yeah.
We want to know because we want to make sure that our students are learning any tool that can help them be successful in their field. Theory is super important. Um, that said, the notion that an architecture program would not teach students the tool of the trade, things like Revit,
Hmm.
and AutoCAD. That's just so different from what Dunwoody is there for. We want to make sure that our architects learn the theory, but we also want to make sure that they can come out and actually be architects. And
Hmm.
for that, you have to know the tools. So anyway,
So there's this whole seismic event, long running seismic event hitting higher education right
Sure.
now, right? And it feels like there are a lot of different layers. I'm going to dig into a couple of them, but one of them touches on something you just said, which is it feels like for a long time there was this emphasis of I don't want to say theory over practice, but to a certain extent, yeah, it was like you need to get in the classroom and learn these things. And it feels like there's now this shift back towards practical careers, careers that can give you training, give you skills, give you education, that you guys kind of sit in a great spot around. Can you talk a little bit about, do you think that's a correct diagnosis? Do you think it's a little different than that? And kind of how Dunwoody is positioned as, the higher education system just shifts under our feet?
Yeah, I think you're onto something, but I will say that I'm always careful to impugn higher education America because it is the greatest higher education system in the world. There's a reason why so many people want to come here and go to college. We have the diversity of it is amazing. The fact that you can go to an art school or a school for music or a school for you go to a school like Harvard or a school like Stanford, or you can go to these elite institutions or these leafy really academic institutions like Carleton. We got some great private colleges here. So it's a great system. That said, if you look at it historically, it always benefited from unquestionable value. If you went I don't know, I graduated from my undergrad in 1995, and I remember somebody said, just graduate. It doesn't matter what your degree's in. Just graduate and you'll get something, And there was some truth to that because the number of college people who had a bachelor's degree back then were about half of what the number of people with bachelor's degrees today. So as the number of bachelor's degrees goes up, we have greater supply of folks with bachelor's degrees. Well, what happens? Well, employers are like, well, I actually do care now what the degree's in. Before, I just wanted an educated person. Now I'm like, yeah, I kind of do care, and also I kind of care about an advanced degree. So now all of a sudden you have this specialization happening that kind of employers are pushing that happens naturally when you have greater supply of college graduates. So there's that. There's also fewer 18-year-olds. We have an enrollment cliff. In 2008, you had the housing crisis, but there's other reasons for that for it too. But anytime you have a downturn in the economy, you have fewer children being born. I think, I hope I don't get this stat wrong. It's around 7% in Minnesota, drop in 18-year-olds.
Wow.
This year.
Oh, this year.
This year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's around. I think it's like around an 8% drop in 18-year-olds because in 2008, right, that was 18 years ago.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Fascinating.
So yeah. So if you look at demographics, and the weird thing is after the economy came back up after the housing crisis, usually the number of people having kids or the number of children being born goes up accordingly. It didn't. It stayed down. And there's all kinds of studies out there, so like people who have ideas about why. Some people think it's these, some people think it's a lot of different things. But regardless, one thing is just affordability is clearly a reason, right? If you're sitting there and you're like, I can't afford a place to live, you're not really thinking, let's have 6 kids. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. So you have some of these things that are depressing that population. So given the fact that there's fewer 18-year-olds, right? And your costs have gone up. The cost of higher education have skyrocketed. So, and then also the value of a bachelor's degree from the viewpoint of the person going, they look at it and they think, oh, that might not be worth as much as it was before, because it actually, if you look at it, there are more people with bachelor's degrees. So they're kind of right. So they're like, I really want to make a good choice here because I see a lot of people are going into a lot of debt. I hear those stories. I don't want to be one of them. And if I am going to spend money, I want to make sure it's on something that I know, you know what I'm saying? I want a bit more of a guarantee. And that guarantee was kind of something that I knew I was going to be fine. You know what I'm saying? I graduated and I was like, there's 1 in 5 people with a bachelor's degree. I'll have an okay career. So So thinking about it in those terms, they're kind of being a little bit more judicious about their choices when it comes to kind of that return on investment. They're asking more questions. Meanwhile, the colleges are sitting there going, all right, well, heck, we have fewer students coming in. We used to just be able to add more students. We could just accept more than we did the year
Right.
before. We'll take our average ACT score will go from a 28 to a 27. You know what I'm saying? Our college ranking might take a hit, whatever
Yeah.
they care about. They could do that. Well, then what happens when you run out and there's literally not enough applicants to, kind of open up that spigot? Then you run into what a lot of colleges have run into in this country over the last 15 years, that diminishing enrollments, inability to kind of change because you never had to before. You never
Mhm.
had to make difficult decisions.
Right.
You could always just accept more students. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're just not, they weren't built for change.
Mhm.
They're built, they was working for like 150 years. Awesome. So there's not a whole lot of structures there that are like, that really actually most of the structures in higher education at most institutions are kind of built not to change
Right.
very quickly. You got a lot of committees that things have to get, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that sort of thing. So you have these institutions that struggle with change, struggle to make kind of those difficult decisions that really kind of impact people's lives. It can,
Mhm.
those are hard when you have to get rid of a program. That's not fun. Nobody wants to do that, right? So all of a sudden, they find themselves in this spot where there aren't as many students coming in, not as many people interested in programs that they can't tie to a job, like you
Mhm.
said. So yeah, Dunwoody is in a good position. But I will say that we got some really great institutions out there that are suffering, and they are really terrific places to be.
Mhm.
They'll get through this. They'll have to make some tough decisions. They'll go through some difficult times, but I'm confident a lot of the colleges here in this state are going to come out okay on the other end.
Yeah. But I think just to poke at that a little bit, the system as a whole, student debt numbers are
Yep.
astronomical. The tuition costs at a lot of the four-year institutions are just wild numbers. Like many institutions, it seems like it's predicated on growth, and if you don't have growth, it's a problem. I mean, what do you think the whole system looks like in 10, 15 years?
I think a lot of colleges will have a lot fewer programs.
Yeah. So that's
I
just
mean,
most institutions will still exist. They'll just be thinner.
and I think I've heard some consulting groups out there and some of the numbers that they're saying that we'll have probably about, and I've seen numbers 500 to 800 fewer colleges in the next 10 years. I would probably guess they're close to right on those
Yeah.
numbers. We'll have fewer colleges.
Right.
There will be some, but the ones that come out, and the thing is, Dunwoody, I mean, if you look at our history, about 20 years ago, we went through a time where we were like, hey, we're going to need to make some tough choices here to make sure that we stay really
Mhm.
strong financially. And we did those things. And because of those kind of that what we went through 20 years ago, now we're in a really great spot where we have the ability to be agile, where we have the ability to change programs, add programs, sunset programs if needed.
Yeah.
We have all of the tools to do all of those things we need to do to make sure that students are getting a great value and our employees are happy.
So what were some of the things that you guys did 20 years ago to sort of put yourself on a better trajectory?
Well, I think we put I think that there's some programs that I can't name them off the top of my head because I wasn't here 20
Yeah.
years ago. But I mean, I've heard from the previous president there were some programs that got downsized or sunset, and we kept the ones that worked, and we didn't with the ones that didn't, and then and yeah, and that was really the main thing because if you have a program that has a lot of folks working in the program, they're full-time employees, and you only have 2 or 3 students in the program.
Yeah.
It's a
Difficult.
tough thing to keep afloat. And
It's a
then
tough math
you have to
problem.
and you have to ask yourself the question, is this what's best for students? Also, I think that we became a little bit more laser focused on that high pay, high demand
Mm.
field, that we didn't have to just be a skilled trades college. We could be more than that. We could, because all of these fields were very high pay, high demand. About 10 years ago, we had a group of alumni who came to us who had done very well and were entrepreneurial, and they ended up in manufacturing and construction, and they hired a ton of engineers. And they were like, we hire a lot of engineers, and we don't hire a lot of folks who know how to be engineers. Is there any
Hmm.
way Dunwoody could have school of engineering? It wasn't, honestly, I don't think it's something that we'd thought of at the time. Um, when you think of yourselves one way for
Yeah.
such a long time. So they said, we'd love you to Dunwoodify it. And we said, well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, well, yeah, you have an engineer who designs something, and then that design goes down to the machine shop, and the machinist looks at the design and says, well, I can tell you this guy's never been in a machine shop before. We want to solve that problem. We want to make sure that engineers would come out of Dunwoody's program and they've been in a machine shop and they've actually done some machining and they know how it works and they know that sort of thing where there's, they want to know the difference between a crescent wrench and a socket wrench if you're a mechanical engineer, and so we did that and we created our School of Engineering. I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago now. And now our mechanical and electrical programs are ABET accredited, just like you would find at any other engineering school. But boy, when you look at like what we deliver, it's so different. Like for instance, our mechanical engineering program is 123 credit hours.
Okay.
So that's 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? 123 credit hours, taking about 15 hours a semester. It's 4
Mhm.
years. Other engineering programs are like 137. I don't know how you finish that in 4 years, but I guess theoretically you could if you were doing a lot of summer and a lot of 17-hour
Right.
semesters. But then you look at the actual program, you think, well, they're probably taking a lot more engineering credits than they're taking at Dunwoody. If
Mhm.
ours is 123 and theirs is 137, we're delivering 77 credit hours of engineering. Other schools delivering 60. So it's a full semester less of engineering, right? And a full year more of other.
Interesting. So it's just sort of focusing and being like,
And
we're
so,
training an engineer.
yes,
We need to train them in engineering.
we want you to be great engineers.
Yeah.
When you leave, we want you to be the best new employee that is a mechanical engineer at the company that you get hired into. Now, some folks are like, well, you think that other college should get rid of what they're doing? Absolutely not. That other college has a different mission. Some of them
Right.
have a religious mission, and yes, you have that mission, and there are people who want that. They're like, yeah, I want to take religion courses in college. I want to take philosophy. I want to take more of that. That's great, but there's also a place for us who just very directed. Our approach is like, it's lean. We're going to get you in and out in 4 years, and you're going to come out and you're going to be a great mechanical engineer.
Mhm.
And that's the difference. And all of the colleges should exist, and it's great that they do, but we definitely have a place, right?
And I mean, you guys have, when I saw the great presentation that you gave, you guys have a much lower tuition than a lot of comparable schools, right?
Yeah. We're around $27,000 a year on average. It differs a little bit by program, but that's the average. And there are a lot of other colleges out there that are, charging in the 50s for what they're doing. Now, I will say that, the thing about Dunwoody that we always look at is we want to know what students' earnings look like. And luckily, we don't have to do that work ourselves. Georgetown University does a great study. They've done it for the past few years on return on investment study on it's like over 4,500 colleges nationwide, and all of the colleges in Minnesota are included. And they look at earnings over 10 years and 20 years, et cetera. And after 20 years, we're third in the state.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of great college in the state, and they're the usual suspects at the top of that list. But the one that's not, that I think a lot of people would be surprised by, is us.
Yeah.
We're literally third in the state in earnings. So it's funny. I was at a club recently, a private club, and I do, I speak for the college, just like this sort of thing, and go out and give talks. And there was a woman who raised her hand. She was like, "Are you saying electricians make as much as lawyers?" It's like, are you talking about associates? Or are you talking about, what are we talking about here? Because, an electrician does pretty well, and then she's like, well, a partner. I'm like, well, if you own the electrical company, you do pretty well too. And if you own your partner at the law firm,
Only one of them can rewire my house, and I'm guessing the lawyer would charge more.
But yeah, people don't realize, like, electricians do pretty well, and also the barriers to entry for entrepreneurship for a lot of these programs. We've had, the founder of Standard Heating and Cooling,
Mm-hmm.
Dunwoody graduate. I mean, you think, you go out and you work for a company like Standard for 5, 6 years, and you save a little bit of money, and you really learn, you know, what the business is like there. I mean, you could start your own, and that's the thing. Like, so many of our graduates in these areas, they start their own,
Mm-hmm.
and they do very, very well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Digging in on that tuition point a little bit,
Mhm.
it's this huge sticker price, and I feel like people aren't really aware of what goes into that number and what it goes towards. I know that probably sounds a little obvious to you who
Yeah.
deals with it every day, but how do you come up with a tuition number as a college?
So we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So just like most nonprofits, we just have to cover whatever our costs are. So our primary costs are labor. It's going to be the case at every college.
Mhm.
And at Dunwoody, what we're doing, our programs are the highest cost possible programs to teach. If you have a comparative literature program, you need some desks, you need some really good faculty members. Um, I don't know. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of the space. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Having the
Right.
space for the room.
Yeah.
Uh, you have a welding program. You need some really good faculty members, and you need welding bays, and you need oxyacetylene, and you need like, you know what I'm
A
saying? You
bit of
need
space
oh,
and yeah.
you have consumables, you need steel, all of the different things, and you have to have welding machines that break, and then you have maintenance. So that's welding, but also for engineering, who's going to be there's not many electrical engineers out there who are working full time who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to take off, you know, uh, 3 days a week and come teach at Dunwoody part time.
Yeah.
You don't get to teach. These things aren't. You can't fill the classrooms with part time faculty members. You have to.
Mhm.
These are the vast majority of courses and the technical programs that students take are going to be with full time faculty members. So when you've got full time faculty members, also we can't compete with. I can't pay an electrical engineer what an electrical engineer can make out in the field. A person
Yeah.
who's got a PhD in electrical engineering, they can make more out in the field. But there's a lifestyle choice, and we try to make sure that we treat our employees really well. But it's hard to find full time faculty, and you have to these are experts. You have the salaries aren't you know what I'm saying?
If
If
only
you're an
there were a
electrician,
technical college for.
exactly. If they're one of a technical college, yeah, exactly. That's yeah. So anyway, that all contributes, right? We want to make sure we have experts in the classrooms, and we also want to make sure that our labs are up to date. All of this stuff, lots of equipment. I mean, you're talking about this apple here was printed 3D printed
This
with a
blew my mind,
yeah,
by
with
the
a
way.
Stratasys printer. It's I don't know if you can see that, but it looks a lot like an apple. Anyway,
I picked that up beforehand and was shocked that it was not a real apple.
yeah, come out to the fair this year. You'll get to try to figure out which one this is in a basket full of real apples. So that'll be fun. Anyway, so yeah, so all of the entire enterprise at Dunwoody is just it's an expensive enterprise, and because we're private and we don't receive money from the state, we charge, but we're not making, like, there's no profit motive.
Mhm.
There's no profit. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, you know, yeah,
Right.
we break even every
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
basically is what we do. So
Well, now that we've cracked open the props, can
yeah.
you tell us about what you have on closest to you over here?
Yeah, Dunwoody is a college that does. We are doers. So rather than just tell a graphic design student, hey, design some packaging in Adobe Photoshop for something, and everybody's going to do that, we say, okay, let's actually find something that theoretically could be a product. This is my grandmother had a lot of different animals around her house, and this is the head of a porcelain ram. You can kind of see the face of the ram here, but when she passed, I grabbed it, and other employees have other things around their house, and we all kind of put them on a table, and students get to decide what they want to build some packaging around, and thinking of this as a product. So the student came up with the idea of, hey, this is a this RAM could be part of a collection called the Menagerie Collection. It could be sold at some place like, I don't know, like a World Market type of a place. Came up with obviously all of the design, which I think is actually really terrific design. Came up with the design of the box itself, and then they made the box itself and made sure that the RAM head stuck out so customers could come by and kind of feel what it felt like, and tactile, if they wanted to purchase it or not. And the history of my grandma's on the back of the box here too, which I think is kind of fun. And so they, so yeah, this is just an example of, we want them to take that next step. A lot of design colleges will have students design a chair. That's a really common project.
Yeah.
And we do that too. We have students design chairs in our School of Design, and we put them out, and they're cool. They're great. But one of the things we like to do too with that project is partner them with a manufacturing student, and the manufacturing student will ask that design student all kinds of questions like, hey, what's the weight capacity for the chair? Could the president go sit his behind down in that chair? What's the weight capacity? And then also things like, what did you make the chair with? Could you make it with something that's lighter and less expensive, perhaps? Because if you're going to make the chair at scale, if building one chair is one thing, but if you're going to make the chair at scale and actually manufacture it and then package it and ship it, it needs to lay flat in the packaging, right? Because you want to be able to stack it. And so they get them to start thinking in terms like they'll have to think when they go into the field. If you're going to be doing product design or furniture design or anything like that, you're going to need to, answer those questions that are less design oriented and more kind of free market oriented, where you have to like make it worth, you can't, it's not going to be a whole lot of chairs sold if you're selling your chair for $6,000 because you made it out of materials and it's really heavy and it's really difficult to ship and all of this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're always trying to connect things. We have a construction project management department, and we also have architecture. And if you've ever been involved in a construction project, sometimes the architect and the contractor don't see eye to eye. Mm-hmm. There can be a tension in the room sometimes where the contractor has interests where they're saying, boy, we want to get this done on time. We want to get it done under cost, right? They have incentives there around that. And the architecture has maybe some different incentives. Like we want this person to be really happy with the building that they end up in. And we want people to love the space. And we want, from the outside, we want it to reflect their brand and all of these things, right? So sometimes those interests can come to competition. Well, the great thing about working at a college like ours, a lot of colleges that have architecture departments don't have construction project management departments. And if they do, they definitely don't work together. Mm-hmm. We can make that happen at Dunwoody. So the idea of this collaboration that happens at a college like ours that reflects industry and really prepares students for what they're going to see out in the field, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it.
Yeah.
Is really useful, I think.
That's really cool.
Yeah. This is a fun thing. This is a little flashlight that high school students, right? People are always talking about how do you get more students into these fields. Mm-hmm. So we have something called the Pathways to Careers program. It's a scholarship program. It's a career exploration program. It does a lot. But for students who end up in it at Dunwoody, they end up with up to a $10,000 scholarship. That's a way that we allay the cost of tuition for students. We have donors that give the college around $4 million a year just that goes strictly to scholarships. Wow. So it's pretty great. We have a lot of people who really care about supporting our students. But this is great because you can see it's red and then it turns different colors. Yeah. And so this department, lots of different departments work together with these high school students, and the high school students actually designed it, 3D printed the parts to it, programmed it to change colors, and did all the electronics in here. So there's microcontroller programming, modes of operation, electrical circuits and electricity being taught in here. And these students just come in, and how long is it a week? Are they there for a week? Yeah, they're there for 1 week. High school students. Yeah, and they work with our faculty. And that's the other thing that's so cool is like, I could tell you I've worked at a lot of colleges that have tried to do things during the summer months to engage high school students. And it's been hard to get, because faculty, a lot of places they're on a just the a 9-month contract, or, that's the time that they are completely gone from the college. At Dunwoody, people work year round. Now they usually do take PTO in the summer, which I hope that they do take. And it can be hard at times because we do have these programs, but our faculty come to these and they set up stuff, like they came up with all of this.
That's so
That
cool.
curriculum design takes time, you know what I'm saying? And then they come up with this really cool project, and the students come in and they're working with our full-time faculty at Dunwoody, and they get to see all kinds of really neat stuff that's happening in these fields, and
Yeah.
do that career exploration.
Wow. Do any of these student projects or even student relationships, like you bring up the architect and the contractor
Yeah.
example, do any of these things ever break contain, make it out into the real world?
Yeah. We have capstone projects in our engineering program. And I'm gonna forget the name of the company. Maybe it's for the best, but there was a company that's a roofing company, and they're like, well, one of our problems that we have in commercial roofing is we send the roofing material, the old roofing material, down chutes into those large dumpsters.
Hmm.
Have you ever rented a large dumpster at your house? Yeah.
Unfortunately, recently I have.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you know how they charge? They just charge when it's full, right?
Yeah.
So if you're filling it with large pieces of material, it fills up very quickly.
Hmm.
If you filled it with sand, for instance, then it would fill the entire container. It would be extremely heavy, right? But if you're charging by just if it's full or not, you
Right.
want the material to be smaller so you can fit more in it, right? So what they were saying is we send it down the chute and into the bin, and that dumpster cost is a big cost to us because we keep filling up dumpsters because we're putting big pieces of material in there. It'd be great to have a grinder on the roof that we could grind the material into smaller pieces and send it down chutes. So our engineering students developed that, designed it, and then built it. That's a big difference. You see, like they built it and it worked, and So it's that kind of stuff that break and contain, and that it's not that doesn't. Capstone projects are common in other engineering programs, but the fact that our students built it, and then we have a welding department. A lot of engineering schools aren't going to have like a welding department with welding faculty, master welders. They're not going to have that. And we do. So on a project like the Baja competition, where the students design and build a Baja vehicle that races out in Northern California, these boulder tracks. It's crazy. So, they're competing against other engineering schools, but they bring, guys from the welding school. And so they can do welds on the spot out there. No one else has welding folks with them. So yeah, it's a really neat place because you do have, that collaboration between the trades, which work hand in hand with engineers, and you have construction trades that work hand in hand with architects. And so oftentimes you have a college that has an architecture program, but they don't have any of the 2-year programs. Engineering program, they don't have any 2-year programs. We do. That collaboration is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really have to be on the cutting edge of, where the workforce, where the economy's going. And you really probably have to be a couple of years ahead of the game. What are some things about where you think the workforce and the economy in the state are going that you think would surprise people?
I think automation is, people are talking about, what's going to get affected by AI, what won't. These automation engineering controls folks, there's just a lot of opportunity there. And it's a tough one for us to, I'll give you an example. I've worked at colleges before that have had health sciences departments. So they have a nursing school, but they also have other programs in health sciences, respiratory therapy, radiologic technology, polysomnography, all that's ultrasound. Oftentimes students come in thinking, I want to be a nurse. And the reason, because they know it, they've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
They have somebody in their family who's a nurse who does pretty well and drives a nice car and likes their job, and so they're like, they're 17 and they're trying to make a decision about the rest of their lives. Like the rest of us, that's a tough thing to do. Right. So, but they come in wanting to be a nurse. Same for us with electricians. So many students come in and they're like, I want to be an electrician. have a family member who's an electrician,
Hmm.
and um, and there's a lot of fields that are kind of where you're dealing with electricity. There's a lot of similar concepts to it where you can actually do just as well or even better that are just lesser known. I mean,
Hmm.
electronics is an obvious example, but automation, engineering controls, robotics, all of those sorts of programs. There's some similar concepts that you're learning, and they are just as sought after. And I think, and for programs that fill up quickly, like nursing, for instance, it gets full in a lot of colleges that have nursing programs. Our electrical construction program fills up. Everybody's electrical construction programs fills up. It's popular, but there's so many different fields out there that, you know, it's funny. I was talking to my wife, and I was talking to her about, I was just telling her when I took the job, I was talking about surveying. Like,
Hmm.
she's like, no one ever told me about surveying. She was like, how many people are you working with? Like, I don't know. You're out in the field with like one or two other people. And she goes, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Just like
it's
Thomas Jefferson
just
once
like
did. Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, right? So yeah, I think that there's this, um, career exploration component that isn't happening enough at high schools. And I know that counselors are like, they're probably, if they listen to this, they're like, I do a lot.
Yeah.
And they do. It's just that it takes a lot. Like, we were in here earlier, and your producer, I forgot what it was that he said he'd never heard before, but it was, regardless, we get a lot of, oh, I didn't know you had 4-year programs. And poor Jen, she's our head of marketing. We have spent a lot of money telling people we have 4-year programs over the last 10 years, 15 years. And it's just one of those things though, that like, like, it's just, unless you're really thinking about college, why would you pay attention to that messaging? You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So it just takes a longer time than you want it to
Yeah.
get through all of these messages do.
Right.
And I wish that more folks who are 17, 18 years old, who are thinking about colleges, kind of open themselves up to some of these other ideas, because boy, oh boy, the sky's the limit in a lot of these areas.
Yeah. So if you could snap your fingers and change one thing instantly about the high school system in this country, what would it be?
Dual credit. Do you know what dual credit is? Dual credit's
Explain
courses.
it for me.
Yeah, yeah. I'll explain it. So dual credit are courses where they get high school and college credit at the same time, and they're very, very popular. It's the fastest growing form of credit accrual in higher education. It's happening at high schools because,
Really?
yeah, because students and parents are like, I can take college classes at my high school for free, get college credit for them. And this is an AP. I mean, AP is a form of dual credit, but AP, you take an AP test with dual credit. Edina has, let's say they go to their local community college and they say, hey, we want to teach your chemistry class. And the local community college says, okay, you can, Edina, but you have to have a faculty member that meets our criteria, same as us, not your criteria, our criteria. So a master's degree in chemistry, let's say. And Edina says, okay, we can do that. And they say, okay, great. Now we want you to have a lab that's the same as our lab. And they're like, yeah, we have a great lab at Edina. It's great, just like yours is. Okay, terrific. We also want you to teach our class, not your class. It has to be our class. And Edina says, yeah, we'll do that. And they say, okay, great. Let's sign the MOU, and you can start admitting students in. And if there's any upfront criteria, the students would have to have that too, if there's like a math requirement or something, but you get the idea. So and the reason that those criteria exist is because it has to be the college class. They don't want it to be a high school class of students
Right.
getting credit for it. It has to be the college class, right? So high schools love it because students stay on their campus. They don't have to get on a bus and go anywhere. They don't have to go to the college to take the class like PSEO, or they have to leave, and there's logistic problems with that. There's all kinds of issues there. So dual credit, they get to stay there. So high schools tend to like it. Parents like it. Students like it. Everybody, like politicians on both sides of the aisle, kind of like it because
Hmm.
it's like, oh, students get started early in college. They spend less on higher education, so it's like a bipartisan issue, which is pretty hard to find these days, right? So dual credit's great. The issue is that there's some opportunity gaps. If you're like in a rural area, for instance, are you going to have a great chemistry lab in your high school, so maybe you can't teach chemistry. Or you're going to have to be able to find a master's degree in chemistry in a rural area to
Yeah.
teach your chemistry class. Going to be tough, right? So you've got some equity issues, right? Tends to be a lot more prevalent in high schools that have access to talent and lab space and all those things, and less and harder to do in rural and sometimes in urban environments. That said, it's still very popular. People are trying to make it work. Students are usually taking gen ed courses, though. They're going to be taking those arts and humanities courses. Why? Because you can find a person who has a master's degree in English to teach your composition course, right? You can find folks to teach your science courses. You might have labs that are fine there. So you have the gen ed covered. So you have that first semester, second semester of kind of your university track done.
Mhm.
You even have health sciences courses offered. So anatomy and physiology is a common one, biology, of course. And you even can do like CNA for dual credit, like this certified nurse's assistant. So you can get people started in health sciences. The one area you cannot get started at most high schools for college credit, for dual credit, are the skilled trades. There is no AC electrical course
Hmm.
for dual credit. Why? Because there's no electrical lab. What's the high school going to do? Go hire a certified electrician to come teach at the high school?
Right.
Are they going to have the needed credentials to teach at that high school? Also, like, how much is it going to cost to build that electrical lab to teach one class, right? So that what they're going to do for that class is they're going to say, well, you're going to need to wait and go. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So when you get AC electricity, DC electricity, basic HVAC fundamentals, even architecture, history, and theory, like a basic first semester architecture drafting course like history and theory, you're not going to find that at most high schools. So,
Right.
so you have, look at where all the students are going. They go to the university track, they go to the health science track. All like we have a radiologic technology program, one health sciences program. There's 145 students on the waiting list.
Whoa.
Lots of students choosing health sciences. We don't have a whole lot of students choosing all of these skilled trades that pay very, very well, that are as stable as anything out there,
Mhm.
that have a lot to offer. If you don't want to sit at a desk all day, there's options there. If you do want to sit at a desk all day, there's options there. You know what I'm saying? Because students are getting started in high school and they're getting started in all of these other areas, they're not getting started in any of these areas where there's a huge labor market shortage. Our machining students, it's not uncommon for a CNC machining student to come out with 7 job offers, 8 job offers. That's like, we're not surprised when we're told that, you
Mhm.
know? So we have this huge labor market shortage in all these areas, and we have no way to get students started on those. So what we're doing at Dunwoody is we have a project. We're going to try to change that. And it's kind of exciting. We're working with some local high schools, and we'll be able to talk more about it here in a few months. Jen said I can't reveal it today, but it's a big project, and it's something that I think could change that for students to where they'll be able to have some of those options while they're in high school.
Really exciting.
Yeah, it's
That's
really exciting
great.
stuff. Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you a little bit about young people.
Yeah.
So I have a ton of respect for, the 18, 19-year-olds of today. They got hit with COVID at a very challenging time. We've really kind of done a real-time science experiment on them with the phones and social media before we really have known what it does and what's going on. There is, they're entering a world where I am personally very excited about AI and a lot of technological change, but it's changing a lot of things. And a lot of people are really scared about how, am I going to have a career? Where am I going to go? What is it? What are, for people that don't spend a lot of time around young people today, what are the 18, 19-year-olds of today like? How are they different from 10 years ago? And, how do you look at ways to work with and get through to them?
So I'm probably somebody on this issue that is not in the majority, at least of the people that I talk to. A lot of the folks that I talk to, I hear the same narratives. Young people don't want to work, or young people, you just hear these things and it just goes right through me because I see these young people every day. They're incredibly creative. They work super hard. they're really intelligent. Um, all of those things. Like I don't see a lot of these narratives that you hear about um, this generation as
Yeah.
ringing, as having much truth to them. I will say that I do think that there's some fear associated with the new technology. And it's interesting too, because this is the first time, at least in my life, that new technology has sparked, maybe you can help me with this. Has there been another time where it sparked fear? Because honestly, like every other time,
Y2K, I don't know. Like a
yeah,
quick
but that
passing.
was that wasn't a new
Totally,
technology. That was
totally.
you're right. New technology. Like I remember when my dad, like I remember getting our first microwave. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm old. I remember getting our first. It was a Tappan. For those of you out here, I got a Tappan. Those they were big microwaves. Anyway, we had a Tappan microwave, and I remember heating up a mug of water in it, and we
Mhm.
all just like gathered. We were just like, it was my brother, my mom, my dad, and myself, and we were just like, how long is it going to take? Because we know how long it takes to boil water on the
Yeah,
stove, right? And like it was cool. We were excited about the microwave.
totally.
My dad got a VCR, and my dad was always an early adopter of technology, and he worked for the post office. And we definitely did not have the money to spend on that VCR, but he found it
It's
some
like we
way.
gotta have it.
Yeah, got to have a VCR,
We
and he
get a
chose right too. He chose VHS instead of Betamax, which was
oh,
the thing. He was
huge,
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 huge.
so smart.
We get a family computer, and
Yeah,
my dad was like, "I'm gonna sign you up for an email address because you're gonna need this one day." And I was
yeah,
like, "I don't know what that is. Sounds stupid. None of my
right.
friends are on it, you know." But it was this. All of a sudden, it felt like everything was possible.
Sure,
You
sure.
know?
It was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, email was cool. I mean, the internet, man, the dawn of the internet. I tell people, I mean, the internet in the '90s was just cool. It was just there was some cool stuff on that. I mean, there was a weirdness to it. It was like
so
there's a
weird.
yeah, right. I don't know.
And MySpace, and
It was yeah. So anyway, now with AI, there's a tremendous amount of trepidation. I would imagine like my grandma remembers automobiles when she was, in St. Louis at the time. And she remembers horse and buggies and automobiles kind of being on the same roads. And so, but there's an excitement around the automobile, right? I, I know some folks are really excited about AI, but I feel like there's a lot of folks out there who are far more trepidatious about this than anything that's come
mhm.
previously. I mean, the first iPhone, people were super excited. The iPhone. So anyway, so yeah, to that extent, I think that's super accurate. And I would say that anytime you're starting a career or thinking about like kind of starting out in life, and you have this thing, and no one can give you a really great answer, you can go to 15 different experts, and they're all going to tell you a different thing on timelines for how this is going to affect the labor market, how it's, what sort of jobs will be replaced, what sort of jobs won't be replaced. And then also, like when you're working with these tools, at first they seem so incredible. Have you worked with a lot of these, like
Yeah,
different AI
yeah. I've
tools?
played
Yeah,
around with
played
them.
around with
Yeah,
different ones. Yeah, and they seem really just like you're like, this is amazing what it does, and it is. But as you work more with them, you start to see, oh, okay, there's some limitations here. Um, and I know that folks are like, well, it's rapidly advancing.
hmm
And it does seem to be rapidly advancing, but there's also some experts out there that say, well, there it'll only advance so much without taking that big next step that
right.
everybody's kind of banking on,
hmm
right? And so yeah, I think that you're right in that there is a lot of fear out there. Not just for young people, but for older people as well.
Yeah,
But if you're starting out in your career, I can totally see it, and we can feel that at the college when we did our strategic plan and we went out and asked questions about like what's next for the college. There were some folks who said, "Hey, we want to make sure that the college thinks about resilience over the next 5 years because there's going to be a lot of changes, and we want to make sure the college is here 111 years from now as it's been for the last 111 years. And we want to make sure that we're agile and that we are really paying attention to what's moving, because what we never want to do at Dunwoody or graduate people into careers that are changing so rapidly that they're not able to get work, because that's antithetical to our mission.
yeah.
So yeah, so you're right. We have a lot of mechanisms to stay on top of these things. But if you're asking me, what I think is going to happen with AI, I'd just be totally uncomfortable answering the question, because honestly, I don't really think even folks who work at like Anthropic, I don't even think that they really know. You know what I'm saying?
It's changing so
It
fast.
is. It
You
is.
know.
Yeah.
So, talking about that strategic plan a little bit,
Yeah.
as well as just sort of nobody knows where this stuff is going.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that strategic plan? You guys have a very exciting vision, and then how you've grappled with this. Nobody really knows exactly where the economy's going piece of that when trying to come up with a big, bold vision for where you guys are going.
Yeah. So the one thing that people, well, I mean, I should say, what the unique thing about Dunwoody is you talk to students, you talk to faculty and staff, you talk to alumni, you talk to board members, you talk to different groups, and they generally say the same things. I've been at other colleges when they do strategic plan. You've got a lot of different voices saying a lot of different things about what should happen over the next 5 years. At Dunwoody, for whatever reason, there was a lot of agreement on things. And one of the primary things that folks agreed on was that the connection that Dunwoody has to industry is super special, that there aren't a lot of other colleges that have it. We have about 500 or so graduates every year. We have 200 companies who come to our college for career days twice a year to recruit those 500 graduates. So if you think about that, you're a graduate, it's like, what is one company for every 2.5 graduates? I mean, that's wild. That I didn't have that at my college that I
Yeah.
went to. I mean, I remember I went to a career day. There were like 60 companies there, and there were like, thousands of graduates, So there's a real, people know that Dunwoody brand, they respect it, and they know that the students, the graduates that we're putting out are ready to work on day one, and they're excited to hire them. So that said, that special relationship we have with them, where they're hiring our students, where they're informing our curriculum, where they're working with our faculty, where a lot of our faculty came from industry, that's our secret sauce, and we're going to lean into it even more. So this summer, for the first time, really cool thing, before students even register, if a student says, hey, I'm thinking about going to Dunwoody, I'm thinking about architecture, for instance, we say, okay, here are 3 dates during the summer where you can go to an architecture firm. And you're going to find out what it's like to actually be an architect. We're going to do some different types of firms, because there are very different types of architecture firms out there. Because the thing is like, a lot of people don't know an architect. They think they went to a drafting class in high school or something. They thought it was kind of cool. They think that like designing buildings would be cool, but they don't really know what an architect does. They were told that, oh, that's architecture. They don't know any architects. So let's introduce them. Right. So these career exploration activities before they're even a student here. And we actually, at those experiences, it's not something that we're like, we've already recruited the student. The student knows that, we'd love them to come to Dunwoody if that's their path. That said, what we want them to do is make a good decision.
Yeah.
And so introducing them to these places before they even are registered at Dunwoody, 22 different events this summer in different areas for people. You want to go see what a construction project manager does? We'll show you. You want to see what modern manufacturing, advanced manufacturing in America looks like? We'll show you. So we're showing students giving these students these career experiences the summer before, and we're opening it up to them. And so that's the first thing before they even actually get registered for the first term, experiences. And then every single semester after that, we want to make sure that they're doing something with industry in addition to what they're doing in the classroom. We want them to create deep connections with industry from day one. If they want an internship early, then let's try to get them an internship early. And then the last thing is we pay career coaches now at Dunwoody who are going to work with students individually on their plan and to help them find work, a great career. So I think a lot of schools, when it comes to helping students find work, they say, we have a job board. We have an online job board. Companies can post those jobs. You apply for them through the portal, and we'll help you with a resume and a cover letter. And that's kind of the extent of it. We'll put on a career day where you can meet some folks. At Dunwoody, we want to actually be their partner in helping them do that. We're not going to run from that. We want to make sure that they understand that we're there with them until they find that job that they want. So as long as it takes, we're going to work with them to find that job. So that whole thing from the moment that they get here, there's those industry connections, that leaning into that is really kind of part and parcel to who we are. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that over the next 5 years. So we're kind of leaning into that strength. The next thing is we want to become a more affordable college. We want to be a college at the end of this 5 years that's more affordable for students. So that could be a few different things. It could be, ramping up donations and trying to get more folks to support our students. But that's not the only part of the plan. We want to try to bring in other revenue sources outside of tuition, and we think that there's some opportunities there for corporate partnerships. We already do a lot of work where we do a FANUC robot training for different companies that need their technicians to get that certification. We think that there's some opportunities there for us to do more workforce training, where folks come in for a weekend or a few days, get the training, the certificate they need, and then go back to work. So we think that there's some revenue streams there that we haven't previously explored that could help us allay the cost of tuition. Anything that we take in, we want to put back into mission to try to allay the cost of tuition. So that's that second part of it. The third part of it is about capacity building. We're starting to get big enough to where we need to start thinking about what are we going to do on space. We've got 3 buildings, and 2 of them we use for classrooms. The others we rent out for commercial use, different businesses, and right there kind of on our campus. And so we need to think about what's next for us from a building and space perspective, also online program perspective. We have a few of those that have been successful, and do we want to expand there? And also from a people perspective, we want to make sure that we stay top 200 places to work in the state. I think we're the only college on the list. Star Tribune does that every year. I think we want to be responsive to faculty and staff. We do surveys with them. We ask, what can we change? What can we do better? And we want to make sure that they're happy at Dunwoody. And that investment in people and considering capacity will be a big part of that plan in the next 5 years. And then finally, that resilience. Making sure that we put some things in place that make sure we're a college in 111 years, just like we have been for the last 111. Yeah. And there's a lot we can do there. So it's a comprehensive plan. We could find out in this plan that we need another campus or that we need more buildings on our campus, but that's all going to be part of a planning process that we take a great deal of care in managing.
So do you think that would be, if it couldn't be on your campus, do you think you'd want it to be in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, or somewhere else?
That's the $1 million question. And it's really interesting to have those conversations. I'll say that because, you sometimes, you look at where a lot of your students come from, and there's a school of thought that says, oh, you should put a branch campus out where the students come from. If they're coming into downtown from a specific area, well, if you do that, how many people are going to come to your main campus? You know what I'm saying? So but that other colleges have done it and been successful. Then there's the other school of thought of where aren't you getting your students from? One area that we've always struggled to get students from, and I've found out it's about the city. I moved here six years ago, so I didn't know all the little intricacies of the Twin Cities. And I remember when I first came here, I went over to St. Paul, and I was like, oh, this city looks a lot like St. Louis, where I grew up, the red brick, and it's on the river. Right. And there's just a lot of things that are similar. Aesthetically for me with St. Paul, I really liked it. And I was like, I think the coolest thing about Minneapolis is that St. Paul's so close. And the coolest thing about St. Paul is that Minneapolis is so close. It's a really neat thing. Not a lot of other cities have that. But then I realized that nobody from St. Paul ever comes over to Minneapolis, and nobody from Minneapolis ever goes to St. Paul. Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of students from St. Paul coming over to Dunwoody, and it's just
St.
not
Paul.
that far.
Get it together.
We've tried for years, but some people talk about the river being a thing. You don't want to come across the river.
They have bridges all over
exactly. The place. Yeah, but it's fine. For whatever reason it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's strange cultural things, but there's a lot of great schools over there too. But I think that. I think that there's a lot of places, and that's honestly those are the questions we're going to be asking ourselves over the next 5 years, and looking at what our options are to try to bring more Dunwoody to more people. Yeah,
really interesting. Okay, so just as a fun one before we wrap up, sure. I have a a teenage nephew
Yeah.
who lives on the outskirts of London, Brentford,
Okay.
about to graduate without really knowing much more about him. Let's say he was going to come here and go to Dunwoody. What program would you recommend?
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's
You
so
can ask
hard.
some follow-ups if you want, but
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
ask some
just-
follow-ups.
Yeah.
I mean, does he have any hobbies? What does he like?
Yeah, loves soccer, football,
Soccer, football,
golf.
golf.
Loves staying in shape. I think he's looking at some sort of physical therapy type programs, but just as a general note, any programs kind of
At
jump out as
Dunwoody
like good ones.
yeah. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. I think that the best advice I would give him is to come to our open house and to keep an open mind and talk to a lot of different faculty. Because that's the thing about Dunwoody is our faculty are at our open houses. It's not just admissions officers. A lot of colleges you go to, you get your tour from an admissions officer when you go to open house. Here, we've got full-time faculty who are in the programs, can talk to you about them. He can go in, ask all the questions he wants, and it's all right there in one event. It'd be easy for him to do. And that would be my recommendation. Let him figure it out for himself.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thanks as well to Gabe Noah, Keely Doyle, Ali Alt, Mike Novak, and Connor O'Neill for all your help behind the scenes. We will see you next time.